But starting up here, joining us once again is James Farach. You want to talk about probably one of the most classic TV specials. First off, welcome to the program once again, James.
Glad to be back for the second week in a row.
Okay, so here's what we're talking about. Of course, a lot of people are probably aware that there have not been very many television series and programs that specialize in Thanksgiving episodes. In fact, there's probably only two that immediately come to mind for a lot of people. The first, of course, would probably be A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, which, of course, I reviewed many years ago. Took care of that out of the way a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there is the episode that we're here to probably briefly talk about. The episode Turkeys Away from WKRP in Cincinnati. And, of course, you don't know the plot line of this episode. I'll sum it up as much as possible. The aging station manager of WKRP, desperate to prove he could still work a promotion for his radio station, is given permission to run his own Thanksgiving special promotion, which turns out to be trying to airdrop live turkeys out of a helicopter above the local shopping mall, and it goes about as well as you would expect, which means it does not go on well at all. Of course, as you probably, if you tuned in at the very beginning, we showed you that infamous clip of Les Nessman's live broadcast of the turkey drop. So I guess the curious thing, first off, James, when was the first time you ever caught that particular episode?
Probably was a kid when they aired it in syndication, because around that time, around 86, 87, it was in heavy rotation on local syndication. And I just remembered, how the heck did this happen? Where were these people to say, these animal rights groups say, stop, this is not a good idea?
Well, I think if I remember correctly, after the final segment of the show, the station had to take a lot of calls from animal rights activist groups who were not happy at all about Mr. Carlson's little escapade, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And I think what made that moment funny, the whole moment of the turkey drop, was Les Nessman's descriptions. He described it as like the Hindenburg dropping, and oh god, I'm smiling.
Of course, just gets capped off. Well, yes, there is of course Lessman's live play-by-play, so to speak, but I don't know if it really could completely be as perfect as it really is if it's not capped off with Dr. Johnny Fever's summary at the end when Lessman just immediately gets cut off the air and just goes off and says, for those just tuning in, the Pinedale Mall has just been bombed with live turkeys. Film at 11.
That was probably the first time I laughed so hard I pooped. Probably TMI, but sorry.
But so just what I guess the main thing is what you think. You wanted to talk about what you think, why this particular episode, which I'm trying to remember again. This debuted all the way back in 1978, if my memory serves me correctly. So why to this day it's really kind of right up there with Chuckles Bites the Dust and so many of Mary Tyler Moore Show, and with maybe even the series finale of MASH, as just those, or even probably the Vitamita Vegemin episode of I Love Lucy, as just those absolutely most classic singular television episodes of all time. I think you want to have your take on why you think that particularly is.
I think particularly
Uh-huh.
I actually put a turkey pun in.
Uh-huh.
Particularly, I think it was about the writing. They had to have some inspiration, like they had a real event like that done at a radio station, and they did for like comedic purposes, like all these, like how wrong it went. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm actually trying to look up, see if I can find like the if there's like a Wikipedia edition on that particular episode and see if there was any particular if like it was
I
uh
think you may want to check Looper or something like that, maybe even Cracked.
right, yeah, I mean maybe I'll try to I gotta dig up a cracked episode, a list, or article or something to read off later. So maybe I'll take a look at that later on. But main thing, for me, one thing I keep thinking about is, and I think about this like every time I see this particular episode, how it's kind of amazing, not just the episode in particular itself, but almost how the series itself is. It's almost like I talked about this in detail back in my review of Max Headroom about how even much more relative or relevant that series appears to be all these years later. And it's almost like WKRP is very much in that category. Like, this is a show that I think there's a lot that goes on in this series that a lot of people nowadays can probably identify with. Maybe not so much about those who associate with a commercial terrestrial radio or anything of that, but it's just the fact that from what I remember about this series, and I haven't watched a ton of episodes of this particular show, believe it or not, but the few I've actually watched, it seems like there is a recurring theme about the struggles of the older generation having to adapt to basically the younger generation coming in and pushing their own ideas and not realizing that you basically have to adapt or suffer like the consequence. You've got like it's almost like the show had these factions. One that was led by Arthur Carlson and Herb Tarlek, trying to maintain the status quo, and it's always
You may want to toss Les Nesman in there as well.
yo, yeah, Les Nessman as well. I forgot about that name as well. I mean, versus the group that's more or less led by Andy Travis and Dr. Johnny Fever, and probably even Bailey Quarters herself as well, and all these people that they've trying to is that
They're trying to be more modern.
yeah, they're trying to adapt for the next generation, and it's just how usually is the fact that the older generation is more or less the butt of the joke more often than not. How their plans almost always be the ones that end up going awry, so to speak.
Yeah. One of the characters that really kind of like represented the oldest generation was trying to like push for her own ways to kind of like knock off her son Arthur, and that generation was Mrs. Carlson, Arthur's mom, who basically owned the building and the station. And one of the things that she did, now this is spoiling the finale for anyone who didn't see it, it actually aired a week before I was born, literally. She was going to switch formats again, letting all of them go to turn WKRP into a news station. However, the generation that was there, like Andy and Dr. Johnny Fever and Venus, played by the ever awesome Tim Reed, were like, we're fighting back.
Right.
So.
And then of course probably the but end of that joke is she ends up buying WNYX and turning it into a news station.
Probably did that.
Had to throw that possible reference in there as well.
I get the reference. Bill Hartman, may he rest in peace.
But yeah, it's just, and I guess that's probably the one thing. It's not just the fact that yeah, the climax of that particular episode, yeah, is absolutely brilliant in its delivery, but just also kind of the subtle hubris of like an aging program director. Who, and remember, the main thing was is that the what really what kind of what makes the whole thing work also is of course the fact that Arthur, we don't know what this promotion is until the very end. Arthur just keeps everything completely close to the vest, doesn't tell anybody about it, and that just kind of works on. Of course, yeah, the other message of the hubris of it all, that he is so certain this thing is going to work that he doesn't consult anyone else on it. This is,
Yeah.
I mean, this is like the proverbial, almost like it's been said of so many times on Radio Dead or on Nash's show. Like, everybody needs to have a 13-year-old kid to run any type of promotional idea by them. And if they laugh or
Yeah.
call it stupid, you don't do it. And it's like,
Yeah.
like Arthur
Case in
Carlson,
point.
yeah, Arthur Carlson and Herb Tarlek need a 13-year-old kid. I mean, but they're not even listening to the 22-year-old kids who are trying to rebrand this station, and that almost always ends up being their undoing.
Yeah. Case in point, that last line that Carlson says,
Right.
"As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly."
All right.
Yeah. Well, turkeys can fly. Those wild turkeys. Domesticated birds, as Alice Cooper said, well, they don't fly as much as they plummeted.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's not easy for them to fly just by tossing them out of a moving vehicle from 2,000 miles up in the air,
Yeah.
so to speak. Like, I'm not an aviation expert, but I'm almost wanting to think that birds are very much like airplanes, because the Wright brothers actually, they studied birds in order to develop the first aircraft. Like, they've got to have their own self-propelled momentum to launch themselves up, and just being thrown into the air, that's just not going to work for them. I think. Like I said, I'm not an expert on it. So if anybody's ends up watching this that wants to criticize me on that, you go right ahead. I probably don't have a damn clue what I'm talking about, but that's just the way I was kind of assuming about it.
Hey, it could be a right assumption. We'll find out in the comments section on YouTube.
Yeah, hopefully. Yep. But yeah, so yeah, definitely. It's always this is that one episode that so many people have to check out again every year at around this time. It is almost right up there.
True story. My youngest niece was in town a couple of years ago, and that episode was going to air. And I figured, okay, we check it out. And she laughed harder than I did when she got to hearing Les Nesman's descriptions of the event and that whole ending.
Right. So I know, yeah, a lot of people, there's obviously a lot of television traditions, especially at this particular time of year. My sister and I, we grew up always remembering that on Thanksgiving evening, they would air the Wizard of Oz movie on CBS every year at Thanksgiving. Of course, most people, especially in my area, are used to tuning in to watching the Dallas Cowboys. Probably a lot of people from your generation will probably recall the 24-hour long Cartoon Network marathon running of the Iron Giant. And
Chris,
yeah,
one of the things I always like to do on Thanksgiving and around Thanksgiving time is check out episodes of Good Eats, especially Romancing the Bird, which I did a review of, which you helped. Thank you very much with the cooking and all the other Thanksgiving episodes. And I also like checking out Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, Planes, Trains, and Automobile, which I'm surprised you didn't see till last Wednesday.
It's actually a few, believe it or not, there's a few movies I still need to catch up on. I'm still I mean, I gotta still watch that Money Pit before at some point in time. I'm still kind of amazed I haven't checked that out in full as well.
Right.
But yeah, but like I said, but I do think that, of course, thanks to the advent of Nick at Night and television reruns and stuff, that particular episode of WKRP in Cincinnati, it can basically nowadays be right up there with all these other examples we've talked about that almost become must-watch television at this particular time of year.
Absolutely.
Great talking to you again, James. Hope to find some ways to see you again soon, whenever we can find
Yeah.
a way.
Maybe soon enough.
Yeah, definitely. Always check back in with you whenever possible. Thanks a lot.